Hey everybody, I'm Stephen Crabtree with Crossville Vapor and Roasted Hemp Co., and this is our Ask a Bud segment on the Get Roasted Entertainment podcast. Today we are sitting here with Tim Baltz. Tim, tell us a little bit about how you come into the healthy alternative space.
Sure. My name's Tim Baltz. I was in the military from 2006 to 2011. I was a lead scout and element mine roller over in the war. When I come back, I was smoking almost a pack and a half to 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I had a bunch of anger issues, just a bunch of life situations that happened that really brought me to a point in my life where I needed a change. Not only for myself, but for my family and for everybody. Smoking cigarettes started to affect my life. You could smell it. I was getting tired of smoking cigarettes. It was to the point where it was almost exhausting to light one, in my opinion, but it was something I felt like I couldn't put down, which actually led me into Stephen's shop. I was looking for something that would help me get away from the cigarettes because I tried to quit like so many people have tried before, just time and time and time again. It was almost to the point where I was laughing whenever somebody would say that they've quit something because you talk to them 2 weeks later and they're right back doing the same thing again. I looked at all the different methods and the different alternatives to smoking. You know, you had the gum. Well, that stuff was so nasty I couldn't even chew it. You know what I mean? And it led me to the point where I decided that I was going to check out vaping. I've never vaped before in my life. I did get an open system off Krebs, and I decided to go with a zero nicotine product because I really wanted to get away from the nicotine. I felt like that was my best chance at getting away from cigarettes. And really, to my surprise, the biggest part about quitting smoking was the hand-to-mouth motion was more than anything to me. Having something in my hand was a safety in my corner. If I spoke or had anything to do in public, like I had to have a cigarette in my hand to make me feel calm enough to act. Vaping really helped with that. The open pod system, it became a little bit too cumbersome at the time because they were huge back then. Mm-hmm. And it became harder to use because of that in my situation, because I can't even, if I set something down, it's gone. I got to keep it close to me or it's gone.
Yeah, I do the same thing. It needs a pager or a beeper or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I went over to the closed system, which it really helped me. I went zero cold turkey. I got off cigarettes. I had already used THC products, mostly because when we got back from war, my entire crew ended up succumbing from suicide and alcoholism. I didn't want to go down the same route that they went. Of course, military, we drank a lot while we were in the military. It's just what you do. There's no way around it. If you're part of a unit and you want to be cohesive in a unit, you go out and do things with the unit. And drinking seemed to be the one thing that everybody could have a common ground on because it was the only thing that would make them forget what they were doing.
Yeah, it was a brief escape.
I didn't want to forget what I was doing. I wanted to be able to control what I was doing. Anger was a big issue with me. I would have such a short fuse that you asked me a stupid question, you might as well just get out of the room because I'd let you have it until you did. THC for me was a way of relaxing and finding my own way of dealing with the situations at hand. I could have went to a therapist, and I might, you know what I mean? But when you have something so personal as war, there's not really anybody that you feel like you can really talk to about that. You can, but you still have to deal with a certain level of it yourself, or otherwise you're never going to get out of your own head. And THC for me was the ability to moderate my anger, take the stress off of my day-to-day, and allow me to focus on how I can make the situation better, which led me into alternatives. And why I have a store currently myself is because I'm there to help people. It's not about the drug. It's not about money. It's not about any of that. I watch families suffer every day with things that they either don't have money to go to the doctor and get help for, because the doctors, especially here in Tennessee, are on anti-pain management, and if you use any type of narcotic, you're a drug addict, and you're looked upon that inside of society. And I don't think people should have to put a label on themselves to try to find help. I think that any product that helps for any individual should be something worth looking into, and I don't really feel like the government should have a say-so in that. Like, I'm an adult. If I have the right to do anything in this world, why are you taking everything away from me?
Yeah, it should be informed consent.
Yeah, right? It's informed consent. Like, I know that alcohol kills people, doesn't stop people from having a drink. I know that eating greasy foods is going to lead me to be a fat ass. You know what I mean? We still eat greasy foods. I don't see him making French fries illegal.
And sugar is in everything.
Yeah, sugars, salts. I still can't figure out salts, especially with the salt mix, because you talk to the medical profession and they want to tell you that salts are bad. Limit your salt intake. But then the first thing that you do when you go to a hospital is they pump you full of saline.
Yeah, right.
They're pumping you full of salt to cure you. So which is it? Is salt bad or good? You know what I mean? Like, the salt nicks haven't had any effect on my life as far as medically. And believe me, I've been through the ringer on medical tests, and I have good lungs. You know what I mean? For the amount of time I smoked since I was 16 years old. I quit smoking cigarettes 2 years ago. For me to have clean lungs was amazing to me. I didn't think that. I personally felt like everything that I was smoking probably did some really bad effects on my health.
Yeah, public perception is that it's either just as bad, if not worse.
Right, and it's just not medically there in my charts anyway, saying that this has had a bad effect on me. So I don't speak for everybody. I don't speak for anybody but myself. But I know that vaping, to me nowadays, because it's been a couple of years now, it's just a comfort. It's just something in my hand. I could take a vape and it lasts me a month. You know what I mean? Or if a stressful situation comes along, maybe a week. You know what I mean? But it's there. It's there when I need it. Instead of getting stressed out, I have an alternative way of releasing, which is what we're trying to do. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got problems. I consider, I tell everybody, like Steven and myself, we're the trauma dumpsters of our communities. Everybody that comes in front of us isn't coming in because they just want to get messed up. I have very little customers under the age of 45. 90% of my customers are coming into me because they either want to find an alternative to get off of the opioids and the drugs that are hurting them, or get off of the drugs that are costing them so much that their lifestyles are affected, because they can either buy the drug to save their life or buy the groceries to feed their family. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That should never be an option in life. And the biggest part about it is most of the people are just looking for an ear. They're looking for somebody to reach out to, somebody to go through the same thing that they're going through. And kind of they find that with us, because we are the people that have been marked on society as being bad, even though we're the only ones helping community. My shop's in a small town where I am the only business in the town.
What's your shop's name?
Stashbox Remedies. It's in Grandview, Tennessee. The closest store to Grandview is 10 to 15 minutes down the road. 80% of the community is so poor that they don't even have cars. I mean, they do everything that's possible to make it through life. Yeah. And it's the 8 original families that settled that community that are still causing the problems there, because the youth there has no release. There's nothing for them to do. They're out there feuding with each other. They're getting into car accidents. They're causing trouble. And my store is a way to bring them all in. And I've squashed a lot of the problems inside of my community by showing people that there's other things that they could take with their time and their energy than violence or hate. Yeah. And that's what we're advocating, is just a better life altogether. It's not just in the products that we use. It's a lifestyle. Like, nobody wants to be bad. Nobody wants to look like they have an addiction or a problem. And to be honest with you, the biggest argument I think any of us hear is we're not addicted. We just like to do it. Well, there is a difference. There is a difference between having a dependency, like what we were talking about earlier, and something that is recreational. Unfortunately, both the nicotine products and the THCA products I see as both. They're both helping my life become healthier. They're helping with stress and anxiety. I get sciatic nerve pain. I use kratom for that. All these products are an alternative means than what we've ever looked at before.
Mm-hmm. And you'd have to go to the doctor.
And the doctor, my personal experience with doctors is there's always $1 to gain by a doctor, because whatever they're trying to prescribe you, whatever drug they are trying to push on you, whatever procedure they are trying to do for you, they get paid for.
Yeah, and the side effects tend to lead to another prescription.
Yeah, and I don't really think that they feel like the side effects are that important, because they feel like they can give you another drug to take care of the side effect from the first drug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
look at the Ozempic. Like, that was something that in one of the House or Senate hearings, they were trying to allow the TennCare budget to pay for Ozempic and Govee and the studies that they're showing on that, like, it's paralyzing people's stomachs and causing severe issues. But we're about to pay for it to make it available to people on TennCare.
As far as I know, I've never asked anybody to pay for my marijuana treatments. I don't think anybody has. It is out of pocket, and you know what the sad part about it is? It's still cheaper than seeing a doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that a doctor's not important. You do have to stay on top of your health with the medical profession, but I believe that the medical profession can cause problems just as much as they solve problems. And it's still upon us as citizens to come together to find out what works or what's going on inside of our communities that's causing the problems. Yeah. Nothing ever gets down to the root cause of why everybody uses our product.
It's not like it used to be. Before, you used to have the family practitioner that would come to your house, that they knew the mom, the dad, they knew your pets, they knew the family, and were close with the community. And we've definitely lost that and gotten away from it. And if you look, and most people know a little bit about it now, I believe that the statistic was like that your family doctor can only spend 7 minutes with you based on like what they're required to do because of insurance, that they have to have so many people that it gets to the point where they can really only spend 7 minutes with you. It's kind of hard to really truly diagnose and understand the problem, and what prescriptions are going to do well. It's kind of like throwing stuff up in the air and hoping something sticks.
Unless you're in this industry, you just don't see the effects, the benefits to it like we do. I took one person that had $1,000 a week narcotic habit that was literally killing herself just to get by on a botched surgery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she went cold turkey and got off of it with kratom. Smokers, I'm constantly drinkers. I don't advocate for drinking, but I sell alcohol. You know what I mean? But my purpose of selling alcohol is not because I want to profit off something that kills the people I know. Yeah. It's because I can't help people that drink if they don't come into my place.
Yeah.
So if I don't offer a product that they need help with, then I never see them. I never know it existed. I have no way of being a product of my environment and helping it because I never knew it existed. So with me losing my crew, alcohol was a big issue with me. I haven't drank since the military because of that, because I honor them and try to find a way to get other people off of it. I do sell it, and people say, well, half the people in my town are old enough where they think I'm the devil for bringing it into my town. They don't,
or
everything. Just by my store in general, they think that it's the devil. They don't see any benefit in it. Now, none of these people, as a matter of fact, I ran into a retired police officer that I was digging a foundation on a job, and this police officer, he was retired, and we were talking about the marijuana, and he said, I don't like it a bit. I think it should be totally outlawed and illegal. And I said, why is that? He says, because it's against the law. That's why. And I said, do you know any of the benefits or any of the research done on why they're trying to make it illegal or make it legal?
Right.
Nope. I don't even care. As long as the law says it's illegal, I don't want to have nothing to do with it, and I don't want my town to have anything to do with it. And that's a sad way of looking at things. If you're not open-minded to alternative medicines, then you're basically turning your life over to a doctor. If he says, hey, sorry, there's nothing more that we can do for you.
Yeah.
You expected to lay down and die?
As I'm saying, you just accept your fate. I'm perplexed when you meet so many people, and there's a lot of them, that don't question anything. That they take the narrative as it is, it is, and that's just it.
For sure.
And that's kind of what leads us into the problem that we're in right now. And then somebody that has ill intent, could plant a seed in like our legislators' ear, and then they run with it without actually looking into it any further. I mean, of course, they have a lot of things that they have to deal with, but then we run into the problems like we're in right now.
Well, I've got a story that doesn't have to do with the vape nor the THCA, but I was a tattoo artist for 17 years in this town as well. And back in the day, the school was trying to advocate for people not to get piercings until they're 16, 17, 18 years old, not to get tattoos until you're old enough. And they had approached me inside of my tattoo shop and asked me if I would come speak to the high school during a health fair that they were having and tell people the importance of why they shouldn't get pierced before the age of 16, because I was a big advocate of that. You're not done growing yet. There's a lot of effects that can happen from it, and there was good reason that you should be told not to do it.
Yep.
When I arrived at the school, I was greeted by 2 police officers who put me in handcuffs and had me removed from the property because they said that I was only there to propagandize or to advocate for my business, not for people's health. So nobody gained the benefit of the knowledge that I had of why they shouldn't come see me until they were old enough, because the school deemed it not something that people needed to hear. And our government's doing the same thing. They want to portray what they believe, but everybody who's portraying what they want you to believe, none of them use the products.
Yep.
None of them have any knowledge or help. They may have a cousin who's addicted to something, and it must be horrible. It must be bad because my cousin uses it, and he's not a good person. The stereotypes need to be removed, and it needs to be looked at for the benefits for what it has done for people. And, I understand, nobody wants our kids to be affected by anything. We don't want something to get into their hands that's going to affect their life. But our kids aren't being affected in a negative way where they're dying from it. They're not, there's no people that are coming forward saying that our kids have irreversible damage from use. So why are they using that inside of Congress to demonize it? Show me the kids that are being affected, and then let's have an honest discussion about what the effects are on it.
And the proof that what they're claiming caused the incident, or the damage, was directly tied to this, because most adolescents are going to lie about what it is because they're afraid of getting in trouble.
Absolutely.
Or hurting their parents. Disappointing their parents is what I'm trying to say. So they're going to say it was a legal product or a hemp product when it very well may not have been. And it's not that street level drugs are not the same as they were 20 years ago.
Well, our schools ain't the same as what they were 20 years ago either. When you create an environment that is full of anxiety, stress, and you are teaching the kids, hell, I never even knew the word anxiety or stress when I was growing up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't a term that was used to describe what was going on with us.
Yeah.
It's a learned terminology, but even our kids, what are you doing to help them with their stresses? Obviously, if they are looking towards this product, they have problems as well. You don't keep doing something that doesn't benefit you or give you a benefit in your life. It's even drug users, they started out because it did something for them. The end results may have been different, but they didn't continue using because it didn't have a positive result on them at first.
Yeah.
So it's more education.
Well, it's common that these parents, like, when a kid has an issue of concentration, they're not doing good in school, like, it's not difficult for the doctor to offer and throw them on amphetamines pretty quickly. And it's pretty common, that a lot of children are on some type of amphetamine.
Oh yeah.
Which if you take that, you would be quite surprised to think this is going to be good for a 5, 6, 7, 8, to under 18.
I couldn't imagine what it's doing to their organs, the damage,
their heart, and the fact that, so I recently was in the hospital. I had surgery, and I was speaking to one of the nurses, and she, like, her child is on has ADHD and was is taking, I can't remember, Adderall or one or the other, and she discovered a THC pen in his room, I think 16 or 17, and she also found out that he was not taking the medication, and was stashing it and was supplementing it with the THC. And when she approached him about it, he had said that it caused, yes, it does slow his head down, but it makes him lethargic, and not productive, at all. So it drastically lowered his quality of life, and he made a rational decision to not take it, but then had to do something, and found success with THC, and had to do that and make that decision on his own. Thankfully, that parent questioned things and thought about it objectively and said, if my child is intelligent enough to make this assumption or this diagnosis on their own, and it's working, then I don't see a problem with it. And
right.
then of course I just advocated that you make sure that product comes from a legitimate source. And
THC, when you talk about it in the oil, it's one of the strongest things to stop seizures in children.
Yeah.
Are you going to take that away as a medication by eliminating the product?
Yeah, like a lot of people heard, when they heard about CBD, it was like the Colorado refugees, going out there for RSO oil because it's fantastic for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's, as you were saying earlier, there are so many people that you would be surprised how many people don't use it recreationally, or they kind of get into it recreationally, but find that there's some benefit, that helps medicinally. So it's kind of a hand-in-hand thing. It is something that's nice to share, with somebody, and then it also benefits them in some way. And like in our store, we have a dab bar in both of them. And something that I did not, expect with Kratom and with the dab bar was that it gave, as far as the dab bar, it gave alcoholics, ex-alcoholics, people that were trying to quit, the camaraderie that really drove them and was the reason why they went to the bar and drank as much as they did, for that brotherhood or communication. And to get away with it, they had to give that up, which drastically decreased their quality of life, and isolated them. And then with Kratom, with white vein Kratom, there was a lot of people that had success with being able to quit, drinking for, to use it, and then just stopped using it.
Well, what like, my shop is a big experiment, having everything inside of one building. Mm-hmm. But one of the biggest things that I can do is I find that alcoholics that come in that want to try to slam down as many as they can and catch up to everybody, or you get the ones that feel like they need 24 beers to get to a level that they feel comfortable being in this position. I find that I can take THCA and I can offer them, or concentrate, I can offer them a different product, mm-hmm. and it slows their drinking habit down, because if they do partake, they don't want to go right back to slamming beers. They just want to chill out and relax.
Yeah.
And half of them realize, well, hell, I didn't have to drink a case of beer to be relaxed enough to sit here and have a good time.
Yeah, right.
This was a lot better for me. You know what I mean? It's moderation is key in anything. I don't advocate that nobody should ever have a drink or nobody should ever smoke anything or do anything. It's moderation is the key. But nobody should have the right to tell me what that level is. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Everybody's different in every way, shape, and form. There's no cookie cutter solution to, It just doesn't make sense. You put a ban on, you put a milligram limit on edibles, okay? So they just have to buy more.
So they have to buy more, right?
That's the only thing that you guys have solved by putting a ban limit on it or a milligram limit on it.
Yeah.
Is that they have to buy 3 squares instead of taking 1.
Yeah, it was a small percentage of people that bought them, like the high potency gummy as it was anyway.
It's all I firmly believe that as far as our case goes inside of Tennessee, that is being used against us to stop the distributors from bringing their products into us. Because one of the largest things that I found is nobody offers a 25 milligram gummy that low. There is some, but not. You eliminate 3/4 of the market because they're not willing to change their packaging just to sell the Tennessee.
Yeah.
So you get limited products. You get, I don't know. It's just, I wish I could feel like my life wasn't under attack and everything that we did, but it is. Yeah. It's constantly under attack, and all we're trying to do is help the people that we're selling it to.
Yeah, the vape side. I've been on the political side, not as long as a lot of people that I've been with, but since 2018, and the amount of just impending doom is very, very strong, and I applaud the people that have been able to consistently do this. Like, one of my favorite people that got me into the vapor industry or intrigued in it, because I started building coils, and was Grim Green, and you could just see, one, his passion, but two, the impact that it's had on him and many others,
right.
To the point where some people that were more on the what am I trying to say here, like going to the capitals and fighting and during the committee hearings, they either drunk themselves into a depression and then had to step away because they could no longer do it, and then here we are, unexpectedly being accused of being Chinese communist sympathizers.
Yeah,
that's insane. It's like the people are looking to improve quality of life. And something that has been said as far as nicotine vaping is that, in 10 years, or we just haven't had enough time. What the industry has been around for at least mainstream for 15 years.
Who ships the stuff in? Our government has to sign for every package that comes through our border.
Yeah.
They know it's there.
Yeah. Well,
they're bringing it in.
The FDA inspects stores.
Right.
And they give a clear pass, knowing that these Chinese CCP nicotine devices that are made for children, as they say, which is absurd. The other argument is that flavors are only there to attract children. But I get that big tobacco.
But cigarettes have there's 90 different tobacco products on the market with different flavoring. You could have the crushes and the menthols and the
but it's still menthol and tobacco.
Yeah, it's still the two, but they make it in 70 different forms for you to choose from to make you feel like you have a selection.
Right?
And I'm sure if they could figure out how to make it flavored, they probably would.
I think they did in the late 90s. Like Camel did the robust, the orange, they were in like a metal tin. And then I remember them passing a law that made it to where they couldn't flavor them. But I mean, that's tobacco and nicotine vaping is completely different.
Absolutely.
If you look at the success rate of NRTs or nicotine replacement therapies, patches, gum, lozenges, it's like 11% success.
Yep.
For vaping is 70%.
Absolutely.
And that's open systems is where that number came from. Disposables have their place. They are a harm reduction tool, even though as like a traditional vape advocate, I was against them because there's not really a step down option with them. Now there's more options to do to go from a 50 to a 20, and then you could take them to a 12.
I don't get how they think that's like we went down there to Nashville and he's like, it'd just be better if we went back to smoking cigarettes. You know, it's like, do you know how much tar you're getting in your lungs off of cigarettes? You're not getting tar in it from vaping.
Yeah,
well, that alone should be enough evidence to say, hey, this is not the route that we should even be joking about going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
this terminology, as you said, is kind of the problem. Like, cause I really don't think after he kind of rebutted what he said when that was brought up, like I don't blame him, because it is new, and a lot of people still to this day don't know, other than like what they may have heard or seen on the news. And if you only go based on that, we're Chinese or CCP sympathizers. So like in vaping nicotine and vaping THC, get they're treated as if they're the same thing, and they're not. It's completely different.
Are we Chinese sympathizers if we buy any product from China?
Well, I mean, it seems like underneath the definition,
yes. So our underwear comes from them, our shoes, our
80%
clothing,
of our medication.
So we're all Chinese sympathizers by definition for buying an illicit product from a foreign country.
Yeah, I mean, and like Fox News, like he's like, this is a product, it's cool, it's hip, but turn it over, look on the side, what does it say? Made in China.
Yeah, even the ones that are made in America, the product is still coming from China. The pieces to make the device are coming from there.
I agree with we don't need to be. To be safe, we don't need to be bringing over a consumable
filled containers.
That's filled. Right, bring the hardware in, and if I'm not mistaken, that's how the legislation now with HB 0968 and Senate Bill or SB 0763. So HB 0968, SB 0763, and as amended, a company could bring in the hardware for a disposable as long as it's filled with American-made e-liquid. Then they do have a path to be on the market, and that's great.
It's more it's political to the point to we cannot just exile China from our existence. We need to be able to work with them as the second world power.
Yeah.
You don't want to piss off the people that are as strong as us. You know what I mean? You want to kind of be friends with them and work out and the fact that we're not willing to work with them is what's charging them to do the things that they are. With us trying to force on agriculture how much they were importing of our product.
Right.
And the taxes that they were having to pay on it's what forced them to come over here and start buying up all of our farm ground. You know what I mean? Because it allowed them to control what they were getting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we've allowed all this to happen. We've allowed it to get to where it is because we can't open our eyes and work with common sense in half the situations, it seems like. If we eliminate money from the situation and look at it from a global perspective, you want to talk about health, you got to eliminate money from the situation because the people with the most money are the ones forcing for the worst thing. It shouldn't be a money battle over does big pharma, big tobacco, can we match or exceed their financial contributions to the fight?
Yeah.
The more
exposed to this I get, the more I learn of how this kind of works. And I guess I would consider myself a free market capitalist, but at the tippy top of that, it's of course your end goal as the business is to continue to progress and make more. But is to stay in business is kind of the general idea.
Absolutely.
And when new products come to market, like if you're big tobacco and a healthier alternative like nicotine vaping, or that product hits the market, it's gonna drastically take away money from you. So it's within their best interest to propagandize the message about what we're here to do and what the product does, and to misinform and confuse the general public so that way they can retain as much revenue as possible.
I don't know how Big Pharma dropped the ball and didn't have the vape industry in their hands in the beginning anyway. They should have been promoting a safer route to their product in the beginning. Instead of going with it, they gave it to somebody else and said, we're going to stick with a product that every country is deemed like a bad thing.
Yeah, well, look in every country, they have some state-owned tobacco. Like they said in the news piece about the China banned disposables in China,
mm-hmm.
but they're shipping them here to sell to our children because the tobacco is Chinese, the CCP owned. So if they lose the money, they don't have anything set up per se. They could take it, but it's already set up this way. Same thing in the United States with the Master Settlement Agreement. The less cigarette sales, the less money goes to the state. It does affect us because of like what's the laws and the process that's been set before. Like things would have to change in order to keep the status quo and the money for roads or schools or wherever the money was said to go. It does disrupt and innovation is a disruptor that you have to kind of find a way to make it fit because of like the funds the state relies on, and if they lose those funds, that causes problems to just general.
Didn't the tariffs kind of solve the illegal, illicit Chinese market problem anyway, though? Because if they're going to put 145 to 150% tax off the vapes that are coming in from China, it's going to put their value at double what the normal vape here is, won't it?
Yeah. It would be
so if it does that, we're not going to carry a product that's 2 to 3 times more expensive than the other ones inside of our stores because we're just going to sit on them. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's no way that we're going to be able to market or sell a product that isn't affordable to be competitive with everything else on the market.
I mean, and that's every device or hardware that's on the market. I mean, American-made e-liquids that wouldn't be, and that's all we carry.
Yeah.
Reputable vape shops carry is American-made e-liquid, but the hardware, if you have to pay 150% extra tax, that it's impossible to continue to do that.
Why can't they manufacture these just because of costs inside the United States?
I think you're talking it's just about slave wage labor over there. So I don't think that we could effectively produce them here. I mean, maybe
get Elon Musk involved and have him make a robot that makes these things. Is better than child labor.
That would be fantastic. I agree.
You know what I mean? Like technology's catching up. That's what I mean. Why make permanent solutions to temporary problems?
Yeah.
All this is working itself out across the country. We've watched it come from California over to here. Not the vaping, but the THCA. Vaping's just kind of generally.
Yeah, vaping kind of did the
same thing.
Yeah, it really took off more in California, and then.
So we watch it come this way, but they can use any excuse that they want, and they can say, "Oh, look at Colorado, the mistakes that they've made," and look. But they made the step to bring it in because they realized the potential of it. Now they may have to go back and correct some things, which is what every state's doing right now, trying to make the best laws in the books.
Yeah.
But they're not taking it away. I don't see Colorado going, this was such a disaster that we want this program to end.
They talked about the benefit, and the number one argument that's presented is the traffic accidents. And what I want to know is okay, yeah, you may have doubled or tripled your accidents. How many of those people are out of state? That's what I want to know,
right.
Because that's really what it was. A lot of people were going there, were not from the state, and they wanted to go there to see what it was like for a legal cannabis,
right.
And like the Colorado refugees, where parents were moving, uprooting their entire family, for a healthier alternative to their children, and something that worked for seizures and so on. But like those people were out of state, and then the ones that did move there, that increased their population. So of course you're gonna increase,
I'm sure they didn't mind all the revenue coming in from all the people traveling there to buy a little bit of legal weed either, and the benefits to everything that they took from it other than the plant itself,
right.
That they don't want to announce.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it ties integrally into every business out there.
Yeah.
As far as insurance policies and employees and everything, it affects all of it because, look, number one, if it's legal right now underneath the 2018 Farm Bill to have hemp, it should be legal for me to smoke it on my time off. I'm not affecting a company. I'm not a company rat that they own me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if I work 5 days a week, I should be able to do whatever I want the other 3 days a week that I have. So, and I understand that, this stuff stays in your system for 30 days. I guess my biggest question is even in Colorado, how could they get a specific number on what the accidents that were caused by marijuana were, or if it was just accidents that happened and they just so happen to have marijuana in their system?
Yeah.
You know, because it stays in your system so long.
Yep.
Hell, I could stay clean from now until the end of the month and get into a car accident and them still say that I had marijuana in my system.
Right.
You know, does that go down as the statistic as a marijuana accident because I just had a little bit in my system?
Right. You smoke 2 weeks later, you get pulled over because you're tired. They accuse you of DUI, even though
there's only one number that I'm concerned of. Show me death. Show me death rate of marijuana.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Show me where physically somebody smoked and died.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It wasn't some like
not a car accident. They didn't get run over by a steamroller.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
They legitimately smoked until they died.
Right.
You know, because as far as I'm concerned, every time I turn on the TV, I see Willie Nelson. I see, these guys have smoked more marijuana than we've ever seen in our life.
Yeah.
And they're still around and healthy enough to do shows at 80, 90 years old.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So it's just an insult to them even. You know what I mean? Like, who is being affected other than financially? Because that's what this is all over, right? It's not over health.
Right.
They can run it underneath the portrayal of health. Oh, we're going to protect the health of our citizens. You ain't protecting shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anytime that you hear, when the argument is to save the children, nobody wants kids to get something like this. Not one. There are bad players that care more about money, and you can look at those numbers as to where that tends to come from. But that's where my argument is where you restrict access. Make it to where it's in a specialty store, much like liquor. Now I understand that liquor isn't necessarily in just liquor stores all over the country, because in Ohio, you've got liquor in Walmart and whatnot, but that I would argue to take it out of those places, put it in liquor stores, and then regulate, and enforce. Not just, you can put the law on the books all you want, but without enforcement, good luck.
Well, here's my problem with them putting inside of liquor. All right, so we are a health of alternative to what they are offering at a liquor store.
Well, I meant put the liquor back only in a liquor store.
For sure.
With the THC or all.
I'm saying the other way, with them trying to force it into the Alcohol Commission's hands as far as them taking over it. Look, the whole reason for that we want people to smoke is to get away from the alcohol, to get away from the liquor, because all the liquor, anybody of us that has sat at a dab bar and had somebody that drank come in, we all know the aggression comes from the alcoholic. It doesn't come from the people that are sitting there smoking concentrates at our dab bars.
Right.
All right? There's a level of aggression that those products bring to the table that ours doesn't. Now, when you put it next to that, now you're going to have the people that came in just to buy a little bit of flour that are picking up a bottle of liquor because they're in the building. Mine as well.
Yeah, right.
Is it a ploy to sell more liquor because the liquor's hurting? You know what I mean? The whole goal is that we want our families to be safe. We want our children to party responsibly. We want them to have a good time. You know what I mean?
They're going to experiment.
They're going to experiment. But I don't know. There's no one. I don't care where you put it. If you put it somewhere, you're saying that it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't care where you put it. You stick it anywhere, you're saying it's okay for them to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with if they, Schedule 3, if they take it out of Schedule 1 and put it to Schedule 3. You're going to limit the availability of your products to your patrons because they're going to only be able to open these stores up in the larger cities where they have the traffic to be able to afford the millions of dollars it's going to take to get the permitting to sell it to you.
Yeah.
So that means that you're going to expect either your elderly, because I hate to say it, but our elderly are looking for other alternatives to narcotics.
Oh, yeah.
They're looking for other treatments in their older age than what the doctors are telling them that they have to take.
Yeah, and a lot of them prescribed it. They don't take it.
Right. So, you got two big battles coming. One is now all of a sudden you're going to make this product where they can't get their hands on it. You're going to have a pain management that ain't going to allow them back on the programs until they go to their doctors and get it out of their systems. Mm-hmm. So you're literally going to force your elderly customers into a 60-day period where they cannot receive the drugs or the help that they need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
that's definitely a potential issue.
It's a big issue. Like I said, all my customers come in for it. They all got out of the hospital for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they do not like the way the medical society has treated them, the way they tell them, you either take this, there's no other option. This is what you have to take.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, people want other options than that. The home care, the home remedies is coming back, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it. Our elders live to be 100. We can't even get past 70 now, it don't seem, with something killing us.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it's time to go back to the things that worked. But I hate to tell you this, but THCA and marijuana's been found all the way back to biblical time.
Yeah.
So you want to erase it from history, you got to go all the way back to the beginning of time and erase it from history if you want to do that. But it's been used since then. It has been documented and recorded use since then.
Right.
And we ain't figured it out yet, you know?
Yeah, I would argue that you can look back in our history at least and see that, again, it was business. You know, that it was to protect business. You know, the invention of the decorticator, if I'm not mistaken, you know, would have drastically impacted the cotton gin, and so then business attacks it, and lobbies the government, and creates a bill to stop it, and so on, and then you go to propaganda with like reefer madness and so on, and then even today that damage that they had done to something that was far more beneficial and helps with a plethora of like medicinal problems from your minor like stomach ache or nausea or headache or back pain to your more severe like diabetic neuropathy to sciatic pain to it's kind of a cure-all depending on what it is, and the more that we know about it, the endocannabinoid system, the more. That's kind of why I talked about it again. Another one of these was what I liked about the hemp industry versus like the legal cannabis industry was it was almost like the hemp industry was like a compound pharmacy. We've broke down the plant into its isolated cannabinoids, and then we're kind of like stacking them in a way that's to the individual user, and I think I can't wait to see like how that progresses in time, because it's going to be that and mushrooms, functional mushrooms are going to be can do a lot.
I had one of my best friends down here. She had nephropathy so bad that she couldn't get off of her couch and make it to her refrigerator without falling to the ground because her feet burned so bad.
Yeah, my brother has got
I was looking into different things that would help her out, because the doctors were basically telling there's nothing that we have that can help you. We can give you disability. We can give you a check and let you sit at home,
Yeah.
And she really didn't want that route. She wanted to get out and be active, but she couldn't. Her limitations were her physical ability. And I had found the research on CBD and the use of it to help with nephropathy and with helping with the blood flow to the nerve endings. And I had just received a product that I ordered for her, and I was taking it to her house when I got a phone call that said that she passed away because she had taken fentanyl on accident. She thought she got her hands on a hydrocodone for the pain and ended up dying from fentanyl overdose. The pure and simple fact is she would never have looked for any of that if she knew that CBD could have handled it.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? And from a personal standpoint, I've used that on other people with the same thing, and it's brought their lives back to where they can move and function and operate
and manage
manage it. Yep. You know what I mean? And we're losing our people over narcotics. You know what I mean? Fake narcotics, not even real ones. Like,
yeah, that's what I was saying about like the experimental stage of life in the drug space, recreational use or whatever, is not the same as it was 20 years ago, because now
it's much more advanced.
Death, and there's bad players in any space that you're in. Rather, like there's argument as to like how someone goes to buy cannabis on the street and somehow like they get fentanyl overdose by smoking a joint. That should never happen.
Right.
And I would say that it's either cross contamination or the person like said that they just smoked even though they actually tried heroin or a pain pill. Right. Or and then
I fear that if they push this forward, that it's going to push it back black market just like it was before. The only difference is there's a lot more deadly shit on the market right now that can be added to it, and we're going to find out the results of that when it happens. Because you don't talk to a smoker that says that they're going to stop smoking because the government said they can't.
Oh yeah.
It's going to go back black market, and you have no control. They are stomping on their own toes by taking the control away. At least right now, the people want to be legal. They want to do right. They want the right COAs. They want no heavy metals or pesticides on their stuff. They want to be able to see that when we purchase it for our customers.
Common sense legislation.
Yes, common sense
and
legislation.
We begged for regulation, guidance, so that way there is no confusion. Like, we don't want law enforcement to not know how to effectively do their job. We also don't want the consumer to be harassed and bothered,
victimized,
when they bought something and they're just trying to go home, or that they, God forbid, they have to use it when they're out and about for whatever ailment that they're using it for, whether it be anxiety or pain or.
I'm fortunate in my location because the police come up to me and thank me for opening it up, because it has helped with the narcotics, it has helped with the fentanyl, it has helped with all the situations that they were getting common everyday calls for. Mm-hmm. They're not getting no more because the people are at least seeking their own help for their own problems. In a
controlled environment, right?
In a controlled environment. Like I say, it's funny because ever since I opened my store, I've not had one police incident inside of my place or on my property, but the Dollar General a half mile down the road's had 22. You know what I mean? We're not trying to be a problem in our communities. We're trying to help our communities, and that's the biggest point: is who's going to do that? Who's going to do that when you eliminate us?
Yeah.
Because we're the only ones that have been prosecuted long enough that we are convicted to make sure that this doesn't go nowhere.
Yep.
Well,
that's kind of what I said. You're basically making criminals out of people that for the last 2 years that you've told them it was okay to do. Yeah. And now you're saying we're not. And
you can still go anywhere else in the country.
Yeah.
And it still be legal. Yeah. But not here.
And that's what's going to happen. They're either going to try to order it online, which Tennessee says is illegal, or they're going to drive across the state border to Alabama, Kentucky, North Carolina, and pick it up.
I still believe that the number one thing at play here is the fact that Tennessee's expecting a growth of 1 million people over the next 10 years. And by that statement alone, they already know that their road systems will not handle it. The power grids cannot handle the growth of the people coming in here. And with us being one of the last states with no marijuana laws on the books whatsoever,
yep.
I fear that they're going to use this to limit the population growth inside of Tennessee over the next 10 years, allow themselves to bring in the bigger players to take over for us.
Yeah.
That's what I see happening. I see them every day. They're trying to extend the 3-lane from Knoxville to Nashville to just get ready for it.
Well, and that kind of explains exactly what I just said, or it goes with what I said as far as, capitalism and just business. It's kind of the objective.
It is the objective, but it ain't our objective.
No, it's not. No, I mean, we're here. Like, we shouldn't be snuffed out like that. That we have been asking, and trying to work with everybody. It was said, in the committee hearing that, we did try to work with them and then we sued them, but that's not quite true, because we had an agreement, and during the rulemaking process, that agreement was completely changed. And they changed the terminology, which completely changes the meaning of the bill. And again, was not the agreement. So what choice did we have?
Well, and I also heard them state that anybody that opened a business selling what we sell knew the risks, and that we did it on an illegal substance that was not authorized or legal inside of our state to begin with, and we knew the risk that we took when we decided to go that avenue. That is not correct in any form.
Yeah.
I didn't get into this because I wanted a money grab.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't get into this for any other reason that I had to use the product to save my own life.
Right.
I knew the results of it, and I felt like it could help my community.
Yeah, it wasn't until recently that a lot of people that had never used before experimented with it.
Right.
Really in the last, I would say, 2 years.
Right. But I've put everything that I've made in my entire life into this, and so have you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, there's not too many shop owners that you can go to that's living high on the hog. You know what I mean? That says we've just absolutely raped this industry for every dollar we can get out of it.
Yeah.
So we don't need it no more.
Yeah.
Hell, it's everything I can do to pay the bills month to month just because of all the taxes and the licenses and the damn every hoop that they make you jump through and every one that they say that they're going to make you jump through in the future. Like, you're spending just as much money planning for the future as you were about getting through the past. Like,
yeah.
It's such a ridiculous trade-off that look at the 40,000 ingredients on our food list that we are putting into our food.
Yeah.
Over half of those ingredients are more dangerous and deadly to us than what cannabis ever was.
Yeah.
And we still are allowed to put it in our food supply.
Yeah.
So the FDA doesn't give a shit about the health side of it.
Yeah.
It's the money side, because by them adding that extra chemical in there, by adding an extra 3 weeks of life on the shelf, even though it causes cancer, it allows that product to be sold more.
Well, and that again, like with moving the goalpost,
like,
please tell me why there's only 34 approved products that just so happen to be
big tobacco product.
Big tobacco products.
Yeah.
And out of 24 million, I believe, applications that were submitted,
23 were denied instantaneously.
None of them you would pass. What was so different, about the big tobacco product, which is also made in China, and it's proved, so like it's
timing.
Cool, it's hip, it's made in China.
Timing, because they got in before they released that everybody was going to be able to put in an application for a vape product.
Yeah,
they already had it in works 20 years ago. They had all those products going through FDA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they intended to be the first. That's why I don't get it. Big tobacco set themselves up to have this entire industry.
Yeah, right.
Vaping would have been tobacco's industry if they would have followed through and pulled the tobacco and started leaning more towards the vape industry like they were doing in their marketing to begin with, because they were trying to push those 36 products when they first came out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, it was too soon. They came out too soon. They came out with only their two flavors, which personally I tried them when they first came out, and I took a puff off one, and I was like, "Damn, that tastes a lot like methamphetamine." Like, you know what I mean? Like, they were horrible back then.
Bad. Yeah.
So they came in too early. They came in without the tech on their hands. They lost the battle, and then somebody else came in with a better design.
Well, but the people that were looking for quality of life wanted to get away from tobacco, and the fact that they know that their product is killing them. That's kind of what the MSA is about.
Right.
Settlement agreement. And like store owners didn't want anything to do with a big tobacco product.
Right.
And when we found out that, because they did try to get into to e-liquid, when we found out that the e-liquid was owned by big tobacco, it was without, there's not like some massive group that we talk to that shares the information to every shop, and it was just something that everybody did on their own. I don't want nothing to do with that. I want American made products. That in the whole we don't know what's in it. That's absurd. Vegetable glycerin, propylene glycol, natural artificial flavoring, and or nicotine. That's how it's been, for quite some time. Diacetyl isn't even in e-liquid anymore.
Right.
And even when it was so small, and then even then it was only in your custards and creams, to give that like creamy effect. But to just go ahead and not be demonized, it was basically removed, or they didn't want to take the risk, which makes complete sense to me. Hey, let's not do anything, or add anything that could even potentially cause harm. And that's kind of why we ended up in this position, and why like big tobacco bought Juul, and then acted as if they were complying and removed the flavors before there was a flavor ban. And you can really kind of see the game that's being played. And
You think that was a big tobacco ploy too, though, to get the flavoring out so that they had the only flavoring?
I feel
that
like
was a good way of canceling any opportunity for any flavor to come to market.
Personally, I feel like that they did that, right? So that way that this is just my personal feelings.
Yeah, for
here.
sure.
I feel like they did that, so that way the vape industry would shut down.
Yes.
And then they have the ability and the means to lobby the government to bring them back, after they've put the law in that only allows them
which is
to
a continuation of what they're doing right now.
Exactly,
they're just taking different routes to do it.
And have been, yeah.
Kind of like the convenience store lobbyists trying to push for it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No.
Like, you are the problem on all these statistics that's happening. You're the ones that are bringing in the cheapest product that you can get to sell to the consumer.
Yeah.
You guys are the ones that are moving more of the illicit shit than any of us could even dream about carrying inside of our stores. And you're turning over enough revenue where the fines don't matter.
Yeah.
So right there, you've just announced the problem, addressed it, and they're lobbying for it? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And that lets me know that it's a money grab.
Yeah,
it's a money grab. That's all this is.
Yeah, it's protecting their their interest.
Yes.
By shutting us down. And then being able to claim all the money that they've been missing out on. Plus, I also personally feel like the state doesn't want it because again they get less money. So, and that money has already been allotted as to where it's going to go. So it creates another problem. Like, where do we get this money? If we do care about public health and we do want this, how are we going to get that money? And like everybody is okay. Nobody wants the tax, but everybody in business is okay with a tax reasonably instead of a ban. So that's how you tend to get these. These taxes.
I see these convenience stores, especially on the alcohol front, like. They are selling their beer for cheaper than I can buy it from the distributor themselves.
Same thing.
And they're doing it to bring in the people to buy the other products.
Yeah.
But how, like we can't have any advertisement for anything that we do outside of our buildings.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it gets shut down.
How can they use a product like alcohol to sell other products by giving it cheaper than they're buying it for?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's basically say, we're going to give you something that's going to kill yourself because we know you're going to buy a pack of cigarettes when you buy this, and we know you're going to buy snacks when you come in here to buy your beer.
Yeah, even though the margins on that is
nothing.
Almost is
nothing. 20%, 30% at tops.
Yeah, or even really smaller than that. I think it's the same thing on like gas. They make their money on like fountain drinks and other things like that, and they sell these products because they know that it's convenient, so you can get it all in one place. But like the stats on like where your typical what is it, like infractions for selling underage, are the overwhelming majority is from a convenience store / tobacco store.
You don't have to be 21 to work in a convenience store.
No.
But you can sell a THCA product at 18 years old because you work behind the counter.
You could, right.
You can't do that in a 21 and up store. We're not even allowed to hire anybody under 21 to be inside of our stores.
Yeah, now, yeah, right. I think the bill said that you could, but then there was an amendment that was just added that says that a store that allows an employee under 21 to access, handle, or sell an HTC, a hemp-derived cannabinoid product, will be charged with no less than 48 hours in jail, no more than 11 months, 29 days.
But that same person can sell you a 12-pack or a case.
Yeah, right. Which is, how does that?
Same with a vape. They can sell you that same vape too.
But if you sell a hemp-derived cannabinoid product, you're going to jail.
Yes.
For anywhere between 2 days to almost a year, and then you're going to get fined at $500 to no more than $1,500.
Yeah.
But like you said, you can sell a freaking case of alcohol that the fact that anybody would say that, I would much rather encounter someone that had consumed THC and was driving than I would encounter someone that had consumed alcohol and was driving.
Absolutely.
People wait. It's funny, but when you drink, you blow through stop signs. When you smoke, you wait for stop signs to turn green.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was an excavator operator for most of my life, and I was considered one of the best at what I did. I did multi-million-dollar homes. That was what my forte was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they hired me for my creativity to be able to go and look at the landscape and be able to determine how to make all the water flow right away from their houses into their ponds, heat pump systems, everything. They all these technical things they look at me and rely on me for. I guarantee I was high as shit every time I went to that job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've looked at studies before on how they used to do the marijuana study, how they would bring two people in that have never smoked marijuana before in their life. They'd give them cognitive ability tests. They'd give them memory tests. They'd give them the whole battery of these different exams. And then they give the one guy medical-grade marijuana, which is used for cancer patients that are terminal, right?
Yeah.
They get him completely baked out of his head. They set him back down, do that same cognitive ability test, the same memory test. And the guy who smokes fails it every time, right?
Yeah.
Because he's never experienced it before.
Yeah.
That was where
unfair.
the test ended. Was right there. That's why you can't operate heavy equipment. All the stigmas that come with that are from that. Okay.
Yeah.
But since they passed the 2018 Farm Bill, they went back and re-examined that test, and they did the same test, only this time, after the second guy failed his test, when he left, they gave him a 30-day supply of flour to smoke.
Okay.
And then after 30 days, they brought him back in and did the same tests on him. Only this time, this guy blew the other guy away and his own results away.
Yeah, that's what I was getting. I mean, it's kind of like some pharmaceutical, some medications.
Yes.
That it takes like
time to build up in your system.
To build up in your system and to be able to receive the medicinal benefit.
Yes.
That's it. The first, and a lot of times, like the people have a horror story when they say that they don't like cannabis or THC because they had a bad experience, which tended to be because they consumed far too much. They were trying to do the same thing that their friends were doing. There was no education or information that went with it, which is why I disagree with.
And the fact that the flower is probably 10 times more potent than it was back in the 60s and 70s.
It's amazing the quality and the progression of it and where we're at and the through extracts and like where I originally when I first heard of dabs and shatter and I did not like it because I was like, dude, that puts a bad stigma.
I was
on
the
THC.
exact opposite, except for the looking like a crackhead smoking it with a lighter and torch.
That was something like the name alone sounds bad. It just that alone sounds bad. It puts a bad name or image on cannabis. And then like you're using a freaking straw and a torch, and a lot of people that even liked concentrates or dabs, said the same, but it again it has its place.
I have done nothing but smoke concentrates for the last 10 years. I don't smoke flower. Most of the reason why is it results back from me smoking cigarettes. Just the fact of burning a joint makes me want a cigarette. So I don't burn joints. I smoke concentrates.
Yeah.
But for me, it's so much cleaner. You don't get the taste of the burning plant. You don't get the carcinogens from the plant itself. All you're getting is the pure product.
Yeah, it is a form of vaping.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Which is another concern of mine, because where do they stop on the vaping ban?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that constitute the concentrates as well? Does that put an end to that?
Well, I don't think because I don't think it would be included just because like those devices aren't really like dry herb vaporizers may because they are.
So it depends on terminology is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
They could do anything they want. It's all in terminology.
Yeah, I don't. A dab rig isn't necessarily considered. It's considered more of like a water piece or
still considered a vaporizer.
It is, but they're not sold as vaporizers.
Right.
They're sold as dab rigs. Or,
they're sold as.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're marketed as. I guess
it's all terminology. They should make it. Part of being simple stupid is just say what it is. It is what it is. You might not like it, what the term is, but it is what it is. It's a device used to smoke a product. It's not a gun.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt anybody. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the product being put in, it's more important than that, which is what the vaping bill is too. Like to us, the product inside of this thing is more important to us than what the case is or the device is.
Exactly.
We don't give a shit about the device as long as it gets us the ability to smoke it.
The desired effect, yeah.
So, like, that should be what the focus should be on, is what the product is that's being put into them.
Yeah, well, and you got two issues that are not talked about, nor they're very widely understood. And the first one with vaping, is there's multi factors here when it comes to getting someone to effectively quit smoking cigarettes, and it's like you said, it was the more like hand to mouth like motion. For that is for some people. For some people, it's the throat hit. For some people, it's the like cloud or the production. Like for some people, it's the nicotine or it's the taste. So the saying that flavors are for kids is absurd. Like, how many different flavors of vodka are there or alcohol? Because adults like flavors.
Hell, we used to smoke cigarettes as kids that were candy cigarettes that blew out smoke.
Yeah. Which it's. The marketing of the tobacco, because I don't even know. I think the candy sticks are still there, but I don't think the bubblegum cigarettes that look like.
I've probably picked up a pack less than a year ago, so I know they're still in existence.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I haven't seen them in so long. So there's multiple issues there. That takes education to the consumer. So that's kind of why I support it being in a specialty shop. And then same thing with THC. And in this bill, the bill demonizes in basically smoking or inhaling THC through distillate or carts, disposables, concentrate, and it promotes edibles because of the tax alone. You can get a drink, and the tax is only going to be anywhere between 5 to 50 cents. Whereas you buy a 1 gram disposable, and it's upwards of $10, which is almost the price of the retail value of that product, depending on the type of cannabinoid that you're using. That doesn't. There's no. The tax is just the tax on the amount of per milligram, regardless of whatever the THC is. There's a different value between Delta 8 and Delta 10 and THCA. So like you're eliminating Delta 8, even if all those cannabinoids stayed on there, you're eliminating Delta 8 just because the price alone is so much higher than like the desired effect and what the general public wants. So like again, it demonizes that product, and it promotes alcohol, which is the one that's pushing this to help curb the loss of sales from alcohol and replace it with THC beverages, and it benefits them, and it destroys hemp stores that are doing it for another reason, which is to be a healthier alternative.
But you can still, there's no quantity limit on how many drinks you can buy.
No, I don't think so.
So you can still, that once again, you regulation through moderation ain't really the key, because you can still just buy more product. You know what I mean? So it doesn't make any sense to pass bills on regulating the amount.
Yeah, and it was said by one of the committee members. I hate that I don't know the name of the individual that said it, but he said that their fear was that the uninformed user, and you wouldn't know. So like the amount that could be in a package or per gummy needs to be so low that it reduces the amount of overdoses, which everybody is different. Like it's not an overdose. Like the person.
Right.
Could maybe have consumed a little too much.
They went to sleep. They took a nap.
Or they ate some and then thought that it wasn't kicking in, even after being told not to take more, took more. And then it finally kicked in, because you're talking about the bodies, their bodies breaking it down through digestion, and that's different for everyone.
Are they so how are they doing like the Res9 versus like normal production with plant product? Like, let's say you make a gummy, and you make it out of plant product, or you make it out of the trimmings, right?
Yep.
So is the Res9 being treated different than that?
No, this is per milligram.
Per milligram.
Yeah. So it really doesn't. That's kind of where.
So they're not
complex.
looking at the method of consumption, because that's directly through your bloodstream, versus consumption where it has to dissolve into your small intestine before you get the benefits.
Yeah.
So the instantaneous and
when it changes the effects completely. When processed through the liver, if I'm not mistaken, your body converts that to 11-hydroxy, and that's why you have such the couch lock, body effect, where you're real heavy, and and it doesn't give the same, medicinal benefit as broad as inhaling THC, or topical, same thing.
Well, the same thing, when you break down the THC in the indica sativa or hybrid, you can take a sativa, and if you take enough of a sativa, it becomes an indica. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can take enough indica where it becomes a sativa too.
Yeah.
So it's all about the individual person.
It really is. That's what I was saying. I mean, I want to know. I can't wait to see in the future, because this isn't going anywhere.
No.
The developments of the studies of the endocannabinoid system and the benefits and the compound pharmacy style ability to.
Well, they're
they're
already unlocking the ability through the cannabinoid system, because it's linked to every organ in the body. It's the best delivery system for medicine that there is.
Yeah.
So they're using it. They're starting to research the benefits of being able to attach it to cannabis, because it allows it to get to every organ. So
I've heard a lot of interesting studies and there was our body. The reason why our body holds on to THC or cannabinoids as much as they do is because of the cannabinoid system. We're meant to consume. And I believe that I can't remember the time frame, but we used to feed livestock, hemp, and the CBD and other cannabinoids went through into the beef or the
it probably made the
product.
antibiotics a lot less that you had to feed the animals.
I would imagine so. And it caused, but that you got some benefit because the steak that you were eating had CBD in it.
Yeah.
I don't know the amounts. I didn't hear that part of it.
We're actually experimenting with that right now. The farmer that has the farm down the road is going to feed his pigs cannabis, the trimmings, and only feed them the trimmings to see what the effects or the differences in the meat.
That's amazing.
So we're doing studies like that even out here in little old Grandview. So
I would love to know that. I mean, because today, that meat would be very. I mean, it could.
It's definitely a specialty meat, because
Yeah.
you could sell it just as the fact that it was raised on hemp and somebody gonna buy it. You know what I mean?
CBD enhanced, pork chops.
But I believe that our body stores it in the fat cells, because we store fat as a reserve mechanism for our body. We store the things that our body needs in case of an emergency.
Yeah, the body holds on to it.
So it holds on to it because of its benefits. It's not holding on to it as a negative form where it's hurting our body by being stored.
Your body doesn't treat it as a poison.
No, it stores it because it needs it later on in life.
Yeah, cocaine, pharmaceutical drugs, which is typically out of your system in 3 to 4 days. Some things are 2 weeks. With cannabis, it's 30 days. Some people it's longer.
Well, somebody told me Tylenol, right? If you get a headache, you take Tylenol, right?
Yeah.
But Tylenol's not curing what's giving you the headache. It's masking the headache to make you be able to deal with the pain while you go through life.
Yeah.
That's not helping anything.
Yeah.
It's just masking.
Yeah. It's not fixing the problem.
Where cannabis is actually going in and helping. The stomach virus. You got a stomach ache, there ain't nothing better than smoking.
Yeah,
I tell you, it takes your stomach ache right away.
Pretty
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So why are they ignoring the medical side to it?
It's speculation again, because I feel like,
it doesn't go against their agenda.
Industry, and again, that, look at what they do. They pay, they spend, billions of dollars on ad spend, and they get no return, or it's 2% or something.
Right.
The reason why that is done is so that way they can control the narrative against themselves, right? Or that way, because if they didn't control, what the media says, then you would trust the doctor less. You would trust medications less, and you would go more to home remedies.
I think we kind of did that during COVID, which is why a lot of people are forcing themselves out of the hospital realm.
During that time, the trust in media and and the powers that be diminished.
In the hospitals, I lost all confidence in the hospital.
Yep. Well, and that's why homesteading and natural remedies are on the rise. That's something that we're trying. We're trying to get back to. It was multiple things, because like when your supply chain is disrupted like that, and then you lose trust, in like where you have typically got your information, that you kind of want to isolate, and then make sure that if anything was to happen like that again, that you weren't so reliant on the government or the system. If the trucks stop running, the food stops coming, and then your neighbors start to turn on each other. So,
well, I think they kind of did that, being from this town back in the day when the bars were a big thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The bars were a means of the people to get together. You knew who was in your town by who went to the bar. You know what I mean? That's where you conversated. That's where you learned about them. That's where you found everything about the people that were around you. You know what I mean? And it feels like they had a big attack on the bar scene probably 10, 15 years ago, where they started, blockading every side of the people's businesses and getting the people that were leaving their establishments and getting them with DUI and really forcing them to think twice about going to the bars, which inevitably led to the downfall of 90% of the bars in our town. Mm-hmm. And I feel like our shops are the extension of that, where they're finding that social ability to get back out and find social interactions with others inside of our places.
Yeah, rebuilding community, yeah.
But that's kind of a threat to the community, because they don't want us to come together.
Yeah.
They kind of like COVID because we stayed in our houses and only kept our opinions to ourselves.
Yeah, well, and social distancing and the breakdown in communication, as you've got your face diaper on, and I'm definitely interested to see like how that generation of children that were in school, like from kindergarten and up, how it affected them, and their way of learning and their social skills and so on, because I guarantee it had a serious impact.
Yeah, like Common Core math did.
Yeah, I still don't quite understand that. We're trying to help my daughter with her homework, and some of it I'm just dumbfounded. Like, I don't know how to help you, like kid. And I don't want to say that, but what is this?
If you can control what kids learn for 10 years, and you can keep the parents out of it, which is pretty much what they've been doing inside of the school systems by limiting parent involvement. You know what I mean? Arresting parents for having involvement. Mm-hmm. If they could keep your kids where you didn't know what they were teaching them for 10 years, they could rewrite history altogether.
Yeah,
because they could change it. They could teach them a changed history. They could teach them a different reality than what it currently is. Mm-hmm. And I believe that our school systems have been trying to teach our kids in a manner to change the way things are in the future, but it's all money oriented. They're all lobbyists that are getting into our schools as well and changing the narrative towards what we should be achieving in school.
Yeah, it's really the big part of the problem is like the government dependency, and people used to not want that.
Right.
They didn't want to have to ask for help.
No, you used to not be able to. You try to give something to your grandparents, they would never take it because they didn't earn it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then they held on to every little thing.
Absolutely.
Piece of string. People that went through the Great Depression. There was a movie that depicted a scenario that was very true, and I think it's Cinderella Man. With Russell Crowe, and he loses everything, and like tried to box and get back to make some money, and broke his hand, and like had to go work, but anyway tried to supplement the income, and went and against all of his pride and affecting his mental health, got government assistance, but then when he got the money, he paid it back. That level of what am I trying to say?
Devotion,
noble. That's a noble of merit.
Right.
is gone. And it's almost you're not taught like independence.
Yeah.
And I do agree. It's been frog in the frying pan as far as like education, and
it's going to change the outcomes of how they see the issues at hand too. They're going to look at it through a different eye or different scope than what we are, because we looked at the entire things different up till now. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I hope our school systems get back on track more than anything, because it affects everything that we do. They are the people that are going to be fighting these battles in the future, and the ones that are going to be making the rules on what they can and can't stick their fingers in other people's lives with, you know?
Yeah.
Government involvement, I don't think is a bad thing on some levels. I think we do need government involvement to an extent. But I think that when you're talking about something like this, that every government employee is they can't use our product. None of them have a clue why they are enforcing the laws that they are. The police too. That's why they don't know how to handle the laws, because it's like, why are we enforcing this? You know, mine have told me, like, we're not going to bother you. We're not going to bother you because you're not doing anything wrong.
Well, that's kind of was my question with the nicotine side. A lot of police use disposables, so you know they're going to want them as well,
Right.
you know, and so you're going to have a lot of of people that are not enforcing it. That could potentially affect their job, and so I it's such a it doesn't make
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's
I just can't. And then when you sit, if you pull up, the House and Senate the committee hearings, you really see a problem. And most people say, I don't pay attention to politics. That's why we're in this position.
Yeah.
So I would like to to continue to try to change culture and to get people more more involved, to where they can't just by the stroke of a pen and minimal information that's misleading, change and take away your right to choice, adult choice, informed consent. That's how it should be. But it will never be that way if we don't start engaging, in the political process. And I beg you to pull up a committee hearing, or go to the Cordell Hall building and watch how it works, and it will absolutely surprise you. You can pull up my Facebook. I share a lot of it, and the fact that something could be voted on when the majority of our representatives or legislators do not know what they don't know what they're voting on. They're more or less just kind of going along with who they maybe trust that's sponsoring the bill,
right.
Or some of the information that was touted, like the individual that said that Colorado man had brought in money, but it cost them $4.50 per that seems to be a lot more complex issue, like how many people were out of state, that like you had said, like how many
it's an
people
unachievable
had it in the
number.
system. Yeah.
It's a fictitious number, no matter how they look at it. It's a fictitious number.
Yeah, until you get that device that allows you to test when the person consumed, you can't really get a straightforward answer on how many accidents
Look,
increased.
once again, COVID taught us that every accident that happened was labeled a COVID death.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? You get hit by a damn construction vehicle, you died from COVID before you got to the hospital.
Yeah, because you had it.
So it's all numbers. That's what it is it's just another number on a piece of paper that they can use against us.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not right.
Yeah, it's concerning. So I mean, I normally ask, how did you get in? How do you prefer to use? What you said, concentrate. And you're definitely more of a medicinal user, but it's as a great point. Just because you're a medicinal user, it's also recreational because of the camaraderie and the community. And that's what I love so much about this, is what we are trying to rebuild community. And I feel like because of COVID, that's where it really got my attention, was the more strengthened your community is, the less the more secure and safe everybody's family is, everybody's kids are. Something like that happens, you can rely on each other.
Right.
We grow vegetables and raise animals, and we've got these set of skills, and so also has this and that, and we can trade and barter and rely on each other. So that fear goes down, and everybody is much better for it.
Mm-hmm.
So mental, man, there's so much that could be said.
Yeah.
So of course you own a business, so if we lose access to these, what What do you see yourself, like doing?
Well, I've taken steps throughout the whole process to diversify my income just in case this does take effect. But regardless, this will eliminate 60% of my income, even with all the other things added to it. So, if this takes effect, it would put me into selling my business.
Right.
I'd be selling my property.
Yeah.
There's just nobody that can take their business and operate off 40% and expect it to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be gone for long. I don't care what laws they pass. I just don't see it sticking around very long.
Yeah, I agree. I think their numbers
so
are
this
wrong.
is just a headache. It's a hiccup that they're going to take good citizens. I consider myself a good citizen. I fought for my country. I fought for my community. I gave an oath to protect myself, both foreign and domestic terrorists. You know what I mean? Like anybody that's trying to affect day-to-day life is what I'm trying to help with. I do believe that it's important that everybody gets into politics. I got into politics when I was in the Army. Most of the reason is I went in under Obama, and I watched Bush come in, and he bought the best of everything. He bought us absolutely every piece of equipment or gear that would make our survivability the best chance possible. I watched Obama come in while I was over in Iraq and take all that equipment and sell it to the enemy. Literally remove it from underneath our feet and gave us plywood doors on Humvees and back to MRAPs instead of these new vehicles that you never had to get outside the armor that were controlled on computer screens and you were protected inside of the vehicles that our U.S. citizens built to protect us with.
Yeah.
And it was given away. It was taken away from us. It was sent someplace else. And, we went through every day realizing that the people signing papers back in the States are affecting us over here and our ability to do the job that they sent us here for.
Yeah.
And that's what got me into politics and really following it is nobody else is going to care about what happens except for us. If we don't take an active role in making a change, the changes are going to happen, but they're not going to be ones that we wanted.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that every day, and they've got too much power now. A lot of the fact that this stuff is being forced through the House, I think, is a lot of resentment on our state representatives towards us. Mm-hmm. Especially seeing that they're doing some out-of-the-way shit on the other end of the spectrum, So I think that as a community, as people, we have to accept the fact that nobody's the same and that nobody uses treatments the same. One thing that works for one person doesn't work for another, but that shouldn't give the other person the right to take away what the other person's using to get them through life.
Yeah.
And there's limitations to that, because you open up that argument and they're saying, well, what about heroin? What about fentanyl? We should be able to use that too. It helps us too. But no, it's not. The death rate, go by death rate on that one. You know what I mean? Regardless of what they're trying to do, the only reason they're fighting against it so much is because they know that it's so powerful and such a powerful thing that it's going to hurt the pharmaceutical industry. It's going to hurt the big tobacco industries. It's going to hurt the people that the government have been making their money off of the most for the last 20 years. And I think the only way that we're going to change that is to take over that and be the revenue for the state that they were getting off of all the other programs until it is the most beneficial to our communities. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a lot of effort on a lot of people because everybody, I don't care, you talk to any of your relatives, your family members, they know somebody that vapes, somebody in their family vapes, smokes, does THCA, does something, kratom, somebody uses one of our products, and I can guarantee you not too many of them are saying that it's having an adverse effect on their lives. I don't see them bringing people up in front of the Senate hearing saying that it ruined their lives.
Yeah.
It's the politicians that have never tried the product saying that it's ruining lives.
Yeah, or they said that a general sessions judge said this or that, and I agree that I'm sure that there's an issue with it being in the schools, and I'm all for like curbing that as much as possible. as we all know, kids are going to experiment.
Absolutely.
So, like, if they're going to, we need to make sure that the whatever product that they do get their hands on
as safe as possible.
As safe as possible, and it's as difficult as possible for them to get it.
Yep.
So I don't know anybody that disagrees with that.
Me either.
So I agree with them on that point, but getting rid of it because of fear of the unknown is really what it more or less seems. I don't think is right, and as as some representatives supported, was that they told us that we could do this 2 years ago, and then they moved the goalpost on us multiple times, and now they're trying to take it away.
2 years ago, they told us in 2018 we can do it. We just didn't act on it.
Exactly. Yeah, with the state themselves said through legislation that we could on 2023, and that what codified that we could do it, and then now it's it's being changed. We follow the
Yeah, that's right. They even made us do a 50-state FBI background check to be able to sell cannabinoids here for it.
Yes, yep. To get a license to which a lot of people are operating currently right now because they're not issuing license.
Yeah.
But you still have to have it, and I still have to post it. But the manufacturers that are operating without the license right now, it's not their fault. They've not been issued.
Right.
So are they supposed to just stop their business because Tennessee just is going to get to it when they can? Of course, I'm quite sure the reason why they haven't is because it's being held up in court, or through legislation. So
even if they pass it, I don't see enforcement. I don't see especially Tennessee's directed by their sheriffs. If their sheriff doesn't have a problem with it, it's not being pushed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if they don't have problems with the THCA, then it's not going to be pushed throughout the state anyway, which is going to cause a real problem because you're going to get the travelers that are going to be like, well, my hometown, they don't care.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go a town over and end up in jail.
That's what I was saying. You're making criminals out of people that that aren't paying attention to politics and what's going on. That may be shopping at a store that's not paying attention to what's going on.
No.
And now they're going to wind up in jail, and it's gonna it's gonna hold up the legal system. But there's going to be more tests that will be submitted, as it was said to get the bill passed. Like they had like rape kits. Blood samples for like certain cases that were being held up because they were waiting in position to have like cannabis that could be hemp or that was waiting to be tested.
Didn't the government go back and release people out of prison that were brought up on marijuana charges?
Federal, yeah.
So they federally released people
that had which I don't know how many people that had simple possession federally.
Right. But still they allowed people that were on drug charges or marijuana charges to be released from prison to clear it out, but then they're going to put Tennesseans back in that federal prison for selling this product.
The state prison, jail. I guess depends on how much you got.
Right. But
I would imagine if you're having to travel across state lines, you're going to buy enough to at least last a month. It won't be a small amount.
So if you get brought up on federal charges on it, and you get sentenced to federal penitentiary on it, does the federal penitentiary release you on their program because you got busted on marijuana?
I think that's another problem. Because technically, if you're trafficking, right? That's kind of what it would be. I would imagine. That just brings another complex issue that's not very clear.
Right.
When you're destroying a legitimate market. So I think that we will continue to fight this. I do agree with you that I don't think if it does go away, I don't think it'll go away for long. We're it's not over. Just to be clear.
Yeah, it's definitely not over.
We still have options. I have faith in and I am praying that we do get this a few more senators to change their mind.
I hear they're looking at a hell of a Senate fight over it already, though. I heard that there's several things that are coming to play when it hits Senate.
I sure hope so. And as it was told to me was that that they Briggs plans to adopt the House bill. And so we need some opinions to change.
Yeah.
And that's be done through contacting them, letting them know, hey, I'm a consumer, hey, I'm a store owner.
We showed them on the vape bill that we were all together.
Yeah, that was very powerful, and I was very thankful to be there for that.
Sure.
Because when the whole room stood up and left, it definitely made a statement.
Absolutely.
And anyway, Tim, man, I appreciate you coming.
No problem.
Thank you for your service.
Here.
By the way, I didn't say that earlier. That's something that's a big factor in this industry. And Howard Hughes that was on with us, the Arizona used to provide him like cannabis, and then he moved, and Arizona did say that industrial hemp was available in Tennessee, and then it was very similar. So he comes here, he gets like set up with me, and like he's got a multitude of issues that this helps, and he's not quite sure. He may have to completely move again.
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to you guys in this fight, and the fear of what's going to happen as users, not just business owners. So, and then when it comes to business, so it's been a pleasure speaking with you, dude, and I look forward to to continuing to work together on making sure this is over.
Well, that's one of the key points, is working together. We've never been apart. We've always at least reached out hand in hand with what's going on, and that's important too. We need to come together. Both shop owners, they all need to come together, because it's not an independent thing no more.
No,
we can't afford it to be an independent thing no more.
Right. Yeah, we definitely need to to band together and communicate, and and continue to share information, and start to work together, like all parties, associations.
Absolutely.
It's divided. We fall. That's how
Very
that works.
divided.
So anyway,
It was good seeing you,
brother.
Definitely.
My freaking hands are freezing, dude.